Imagine a galactic stock exchange where the primary currency isn't, digital credits or gold bullion or rare earth metals.
Right.
It's literal teeth.
Literal teeth.
And you don't, mine this currency. You don't invest it in mutual funds or whatever. You beat it directly out of the mouths of your business rivals with a rusted wrench.
Exactly. It's incredibly visceral.
Welcome to the Economy of the Bad Moons. I want to welcome you, our listener, to today's deep dive.
Yeah.
We know you're curious to explore some wildly different perspectives with us today, and we're going to avoid the usual information overload while we do it.
Yeah, we're pulling from a really dense, just fascinating text today called The Golden Horde, Wealth and Warfare of the Bad Moons.
Which is such a great title, by the way.
Oh, it's fantastic. And, setting the stage here, we are looking at the grim, war-torn 41st millennium. Specifically, we're looking at a faction of the greenskin or orc race, the Bad Moons.
Right, and what's wild about this source is how it just completely reframes everything we usually assume about greenskin culture.
It really does.
We aren't looking at the typical, mindless green tie charging into artillery fire. The text lays out this hyper-capitalist society where the obsessive pursuit of extreme wealth is the sole engine of their existence.
Yeah.
War and wealth aren't just connected for them. They are the exact same mechanism. So, okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is to understand how the Bad Moons operate, not just as monsters, but as this hyper-capitalist machine.
What's fascinating here is that the author essentially frames the Bad Moons as the nouveau riche of the galaxy.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Right. It completely bypasses the usual military analysis we see applied to this faction. This isn't just about tactics. This is a study in weaponized consumerist greed.
Weaponized consumerist greed. Wow.
Yeah. Every single action they take, from the planetary invasions they launch down to the specific mercenaries they hire, it's driven by this obscene, almost pathological love of wealth.
Right.
And the flashy display of that capital. We're looking at a culture that has perfectly aligned its biological imperatives with raw, unfettered capitalism.
And to understand how they weaponize it, we kind of have to look at the foundation of that economy,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Because any system built on capital needs a currency. And for this society, the text introduces us to what they call the cult of the teef.
Spelled T-E-E-F for the record.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
T-E-E-F. And we already know how orc biology works generally. They constantly shed and regrow their teeth, meaning the currency is biologically generated.
Which is just wild from an economic standpoint.
Right. But the text establishes that the Bad Moons are the undisputed wealthiest of all the clans because their teeth actually grow faster and larger than any other orc faction.
Yeah.
So they basically have a biological monopoly on inflation.
It's a literal physiological advantage that dictates their entire sociological structure.
It's crazy.
But, they don't just rely on their own biology. The Bad Moons actively control some of the richest mineral and mining worlds in the galaxy. Yeah, they have built an incredibly vast infrastructure of resource extraction that completely eclipses what we usually see from, say, the Snakebites or even the Goths.
The other clans.
Right, the other clans. They are managing mining portfolios on a planetary scale.
Wow.
And they need these vast resources to fuel an endless, closed loop of consumption and display. The cycle works through a constant burning obsession for more things.
More guns, heavier armor, higher status, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And to fuel that, they wage massive wars, primarily to acquire raw materials from the planets they conquer.
The text actually mentions that they go to war for those raw materials, like the promethium, the iron, the adamantium.
Yeah.
But the actual teeth of their enemies serve as this sort of welcome financial bonus on top of the planetary strip mining.
That's a nice little perk for them.
Right, like you launch a crusade for the iron in the ground, but knocking out a rival war boss's teeth pays for the fuel on the way home.
That is a perfect way to describe it.
It's the most direct, brutal form of profit imaginable. It's resource extraction on a macro and a micro scale simultaneously. Kind of like hyper-aggressive corporate raiding or the era of robber barons, but taken to a literal bloody extreme.
Oh, absolutely. And this massive accumulation of wealth from mining entire planets and extracting teeth on the battlefield, it creates a very specific kind of class system.
Okay.
The text describes it as a brutal meritocracy, but one defined entirely by capital.
Interesting.
Yeah, in Bad Moon society, the richest individuals are able to afford the absolute best equipment, the heaviest armor, the most devastating weapons.
Right.
And because they have the best gear, they demand and receive the greatest respect.
Wait. Let me push back on that for a second.
Sure.
If status in this clan is just about who has the biggest bank account, why wouldn't a weak orc just amass a fortune, maybe inherit a stash of teeth from somewhere, and just hire a bunch of muscle?
Ah, I see what you mean. Like, how does a culture fundamentally built on violence respect a warlord who essentially just bought his way to the top? If you can just purchase the biggest gun, doesn't that bypass the whole might makes right philosophy they have going on?
Well, I mean, in human history, you absolutely see that dynamic, right?
Yeah.
You can inherit a vast fortune, be physically or tactically incompetent, and still wield immense power by utilizing the labor and violence of others.
Yeah, happens all the time.
But in Bad Moon society, you cannot hold on to wealth if you cannot personally defend it.
Oh, okay.
It is a violent feedback loop that prevents passive wealth hoarding.
So no orc trust fund babies.
Exactly. No trust funds here.
Yeah.
Yes, wealth buys the best gear, but that gear ensures you survive the most brutal close quarters combat.
Right.
Surviving and winning those fights makes you richer because you claim the loot and the teeth of the losers.
I see.
So if a Bat Moon Nob, one of their elites, is rich, it means he has fought enough to acquire that wealth, and he has effectively invested that capital into the gear required to stay alive to fight again. So the wealth isn't a substitute for fighting ability. It's an amplifier for it.
An amplifier, yes.
Like a walking, talking, heavily armed investment portfolio.
They have merged the concepts of capital and violence so completely that there is no distinction.
That's terrifying.
Right. Fighting isn't about ideology, and it certainly isn't about honor. It is strictly a resource acquisition strategy. The richest are the strongest, and the strongest are the richest.
You just can't separate them.
You simply cannot separate the two concepts in their psychology. And if you, our listener, imagine a world where your bank account directly dictated your physical power and your lifespan, you can start to relate to this alien concept.
Yeah, that makes it very real.
And if your wealth is the only thing keeping you at the top of the food chain, and your wealth is the only proof of your strength, you have to broadcast exactly how wealthy you are.
You have to show it off.
Exactly. You can't keep your teeth hidden in a buried lockbox. You have to wear them.
Which brings us to the visual culture of these guys, what the text calls the mark of the bad moon.
Yes, the aesthetics.
Because if your life and your authority depend on people knowing exactly how much capital you possess, you inevitably end up with a culture of extreme display.
Extreme is the right word.
And they take it to a level of tactical absurdity. Like, the text details how prominent Bad Moons obsessively modify their combat armor with solid gold plates and decorative jewels.
The aesthetics of arrogance, I like to call it.
Yeah.
We're talking about massive, brutish, alien warriors deliberately weighing themselves down with soft, unprotective metals purely for the spectacle.
Purely to show off. And here's where it gets really interesting. The truly insane part is their chosen clan colors.
Oh, the yellow.
Yes. They paint their armor, their transport vehicles, and their weapons in these blinding, garish yellows and golds.
You're so bright.
And the specific reason given in the text isn't camouflage, obviously, and it isn't even clan heraldry in the traditional sense.
No, not at all.
It's to prove that they can afford to waste incredibly expensive, rare pigments on completely impractical colors.
Right.
Like, they are marching into a war zone, a muddy, bloody, smoke-filled trench network wearing neon yellow.
It's absurd.
It is the human equivalent of showing up to a bare-knuckle mud wrestling match wearing a bespoke, neon yellow designer tuxedo, solely to prove to everyone watching that you can afford the astronomical dry cleaning bill afterward.
That is a brilliant analogy. It's the ultimate expression of conspicuous consumption.
Conspicuous consumption, exactly.
We see this in human economics with Veblen goods.
Veblen goods. Can you explain that for me?
Sure, yeah. Veblen goods are luxury items where the demand actually increases as the price increases.
Oh, like super high-end watches or something.
Precisely. Simply because they serve as exclusive status symbols. The impracticality and the cost are the entire point of the item.
Wow, okay.
So transpose that sociology onto the 41st millennium. For the Bad Moons, this bright yellow pigment is the ultimate Veblen good.
Right.
But in a combat scenario, it serves a secondary psychological purpose. When a Bad Moon warlord stomps onto a gray, ruined battlefield, blinding the enemy with yellow paint and sparkling jewels, he is engaging in psychological warfare.
They didn't think of it that way.
Yeah, he is broadcasting, quote, I am so incredibly rich, so heavily armed, and so utterly dangerous that I do not even need to hide from you.
I want you to see me coming.
Exactly. I want you to see me coming because there is absolutely nothing your artillery can do to stop me.
Just picture the psychological impact of that on, like, an Imperial Guard regiment.
Ah, it would be devastating.
They're used to fighting orcs who use the terrain, who swarm through the ruins, or who at least wear colors that blend into the dirt and blood.
Right, muddy browns and greens.
And then over the ridge comes a roaring horde, dripping in gold, blazing in yellow, with jewels glinting through the Prometheum smoke.
It's quite the image.
It's terrifying,
Yeah.
precisely because it proves a complete absence of fear. They're turning the war into a gaudy performance of their own bank accounts.
Yeah, they lack all subtlety. They have elevated the simple, brutal act of warfare into a golden spectacle of firepower.
A spectacle.
It's a flex that demoralizes the enemy before the first shot is even fired.
But, gold plates and expensive yellow paint don't actually stop bolter rounds.
No, they certainly do not.
You can't bludgeon an enemy titan to death with a really expensive paint job.
No, you need actual weapons for that.
Right. To maintain this cycle of wealth, to keep conquering mining worlds and extracting teeth to pay for the yellow pigment, the Bad Moons need to convert that wealth into actual tangible firepower.
Exactly.
And the text goes deep into the mechanics of their wealth, specifically how they achieve what they call superior daca.
And this is where their wealth transitions from mere vanity into devastating practical application.
Okay, lay it on me.
The text explains that the Bad Moon's unimaginable wealth allows them to completely monopolize the most skilled engineers and artisans in their species, known as the Mech Boys.
It's like a galactic brain drain.
It's exactly what it is.
The Bad Moons are basically operating as the Silicon Valley for orc engineering.
Yes.
They are buying up all the top-tier talent across the entire species.
Yeah.
Like, if you are a genius orc mechanic who wants to build the loudest, most experimental, most destructive weapon possible, you aren't going to stay with a poor, scrounging clan where you have to build guns out of rusted scrap.
Why would you?
Right. You go to the Bad Moons because they will fund your startup.
Absolutely.
They have the raw materials, the rare metals, and an unlimited budget.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this creates a terrifying technological monopoly.
A monopoly on firepower.
Exactly. By attracting all the best Mech Boys, the Bad Moons consistently secure the highest quality gear.
It makes sense.
Their rifles and pistols aren't prone to jamming like the weapons of other clans. Their vehicles are constructed from superior alloys, their engines run hotter and faster, and their armor plating is vastly thicker.
The text notes they're often the very first to feel the latest, most dangerous technology, too.
Yes, the early adopters.
Right. They are the early adopters, the beta testers of destruction.
That's a great phrase.
While other clans are fighting with whatever they can scavenge, the Bad Moons are going to war with polished, well-maintained, cutting-edge gear.
And it shows on the battlefield.
They field extensive artillery and armored support that allows them to cover their own advance with a wall of high-explosive ordnance that other clans simply cannot afford to manufacture.
We really have to look closely at the knobs here.
The knobs?
Yeah, the elites, these sort of upper management of this brutal corporate structure.
Okay.
The text points out that any Bad Moon knob can be counted on to carry an absurd amount of flashy gear.
Like what?
Well, they wield combi weapons, which are essentially two high-powered weapons fused together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, doubling the destructive output and, of course, doubling the cost.
Right.
And they maintain retinues of Gretchen, these smaller goblin-like creatures, whose sole purpose is to act as pack mules for the knob's extra weapons and loot.
It's like having a heavily armed caddy on the golf course of war.
That's exactly it, a very violent golf course.
But the detail that really highlights the extremity of their consumerism is the cyborg bodies.
Oh, yes, the cyborg bodies.
These wealthy elites are actually buying biological upgrades.
The cyborg bodies are the absolute peak of this consumerist cycle.
Really? The peak?
Oh, yeah. A cyborg body means voluntarily amputating your own flesh and bone and replacing it with high-end, heavily armored, pneumatic mechanical prosthetics.
That is why.
They are upgrading their literal biology through capital expenditure.
It's funny, if you think about it, they take the exact same consumerist drive that makes a human stand in line for 10 hours for the newest smartphone.
Right.
And they apply it to their physical forms for the express purpose of murder.
Yeah, it's consumerism taken to its most violent logical conclusion.
They are purchasing a better, more efficient physical self. They aren't just wearing their wealth. They are surgically implanting it to become more efficient killing machines.
Which in turn allows them to acquire more wealth.
Right, it feeds back into the loop.
The consumerism is entirely self-sustaining and infinitely escalating.
It just keeps going.
Yeah, they spend their teeth to replace an arm with a hydraulic power claw. That claw allows them to crush a heavily armored space marine.
Okay.
They take that space marine's war gear and extract his resources, which pays off the debt of the hydraulic arm, and immediately funds the next surgical upgrade.
So it is a flawless economic loop of violence.
Of a flawless economic loop, yes.
But, you know, a system like that has a tipping point, doesn't it?
What do you mean?
Well, once you have the best artisans, the biggest guns, and the hydraulic power claws, you can't just sit on them.
Ah, right.
A hyper-capitalist society requires constant growth and constant consumption.
It has to expand.
You have to use the assets to get a return on your investment. And that dictates exactly how the Bad Moons interact with the rest of the galaxy on a macro scale.
Yes.
The text moves into what it calls the culture of the Golden Horde.
And this internal societal obsession becomes a massive problem for the rest of the galaxy.
Right.
The Bad Moons are driven by a relentless, insatiable appetite for more. This makes them highly volatile. They are consistently the first to instigate a massive sector-spanning crusade, wage EH, as they call it.
Right. They start these wars because they want to be the first ones through the door.
Exactly.
They want to claim the absolute best loot before the other clans even arrive on the battlefield.
It's the early worm, essentially.
But the text reveals a really fascinating dynamic in their interclan politics.
Yeah.
Because of their immense wealth and their monopoly on superior artillery, other Ork clans frequently purchase a Bad Moon's war boss's loyalty.
Yes.
They operate as a massive mercenary force.
They do.
But wait, let me ask you this. If they are the richest, most arrogant, most heavily armed faction with massive egos and gold-plated armor,
Yeah.
why would they ever submit to taking orders and acting as mercenaries for another clan?
It seems counterintuitive, right?
Yeah. Doesn't submitting to a poorer war boss completely contradict their entire supremacy complex?
Well, you're applying human concepts of pride and military hierarchy to a species that views violence purely through the lens of commerce.
Oh.
The text explicitly states that a Bad Moon's loyalty is determined strictly by the size of the payment.
Strictly the payment.
To them, acting as a mercenary isn't demeaning in the slightest. It is a highly lucrative business contract.
I guess that makes sense.
Think about it. Why spend your own resources planning a massive campaign, organizing the logistical nightmares of space travel, and taking the strategic risks of frontline leadership,
Right.
when you can let another clan's war boss do all the hard work?
It's risk outsourcing.
Exactly. The Bad Moons sign the contract, demand an exorbitant upfront payment of teeth and raw resources, and in return, they drop into a prearranged battlefield.
They just show up to do a job.
Yeah, they get to test out their flashy new artillery, reap the financial rewards of the salvage, and then immediately leave when the terms of the contract are fulfilled.
They let the other clans absorb the casualties while they reap the guaranteed financial dividends.
It's very smart business.
Imagine the reality of that on the ground, right?
The cheers there.
Okay, so a different Ork clan is getting pushed back, losing a war of attrition against a heavily fortified Imperial Hive city.
Right. They're desperate.
The local war boss is totally desperate, so he opens his vaults and transfers a fortune to a Bad Moon mercenary fleet sitting in orbit.
Just wiring the funds, basically.
Exactly. And suddenly the sky goes dark with drop pods.
Yeah.
But it's not desperate, scrappy reinforcements crashing into the mud.
No, it's something else entirely.
It is a perfectly organized, gleaming, mechanized army.
The Golden Horde arriving on schedule to fulfill a purchase order.
Man, that's such a good visual. They roll out of their transports in that blinding yellow armor, deploying polished artillery lines with perfect precision.
Yeah.
They haven't come because they believe in the Watchich. They don't care if the local war boss lives or dies once the contract clears.
Not at all.
They are entirely motivated by the upfront payment and the promise of stripping the Hive City of its wealth.
Pure profit motive.
So they unleash an absolute storm of the highest tech weaponry in existence, obliterate the enemy lines, scoop up the best scrap, extract the teeth from the dead, and march back to their ships, counting their profit margins.
It is war executed as a purely transactional service industry.
That is just It's chilling, honestly.
And that transactional nature is what makes them so profoundly dangerous. You aren't fighting an enemy with a political grievance that can be negotiated or appeased.
You can't just sign a treaty with them.
No, you are fighting a heavily armed private military corporation that views your entire civilization as nothing more than a localized deposit of raw materials waiting to be harvested and liquidated.
We started by saying they are hyper-capitalists. But the capitalism actually makes them vastly more monstrous than if they were just mindless, raging brutes.
It really does.
Which brings us to the final conclusion of the text, where the author outlines what they call the ultimate horror of the bad moons.
Yeah, this is where it gets deeply psychological.
Oh.
The author describes them as the embodiment of the orcish id.
The id, like Freud.
Exactly. In psychological terms, the id is the primitive, impulsive part of the mind that responds directly and immediately to basic urges, needs, and desires.
Okay, I follow.
The bad moons possess absolutely no superego to restrain them.
No conscience, basically.
Right. They are a terrifying vision of a society where raw, consumerist greed has been perfectly weaponized without any moral or ethical friction.
Wow. The final line of the excerpt is staggering in its bluntness.
What does it say again?
It simply says, quote, "They are the golden horde, and they are coming to take everything you have and shoot you with it."
Shoot you with it.
That strips away all the historical, political, or ideological justifications that usually frame galactic conflict. It is pure, unadulterated consumption.
This raises an important question, though.
What's that?
What makes the bad moons truly terrifying isn't their monopoly on mech boys or their cyborg bodies or their gold-plated tanks. No, it is their underlying motivation. In human history, even the most brutal conflicts are usually wrapped in some sort of ideological justification, right?
Yeah, sure, like liberation, defense, manifest destiny, whatever.
Exactly. But the bad moons have stripped the moral framework away entirely.
There's no excuse.
Right. You cannot reason with an enemy whose only ideology is acquiring your resources to fuel their own endless consumption.
They are a dark mirror held up to consumerism, stripped of all empathy.
For them, the simple desire for more has become an engine of galactic destruction.
So, for you listening, think about how powerful a society becomes when every single societal pressure is perfectly aligned.
Scary thought.
For the bad moons, their social status, their physical survival, their artistic expression, and their technological advancement are all pushing in the exact same direction.
The acquisition of more capital.
Exactly. There's no internal friction in their culture about art versus commerce or peace versus war.
None at all.
Art is a golden gun. Commerce is shooting someone with it. Peace simply does not compute in their economic model.
It is a society functioning at absolute efficiency toward the most destructive possible end. They have found perfect societal harmony through perfect greed.
Which leaves us with a massive existential question based on this cycle of wealth.
Oh, the cycle of wealth.
Yeah, we've mapped out this closed loop, right, of shooting enemies, taking their resources, and using those resources to build bigger guns to shoot bigger enemies.
Right.
But what happens if this perfect hyper-capitalist war machine actually wins?
That is the ultimate question. If the bad moon's entire society requires constant, endless consumption and warfare to function, if they conquer the galaxy and there is no one left to take tea from, no one left to steal resources from,
what then?
Does the machine inevitably turn its superior firepower upon itself?
Oof.
Can a society built strictly on infinite violent consumption survive the reality of its own success? Or is it biologically and economically destined to consume itself when the external capital runs out?
That is exactly the kind of structural flaw that makes exploring these texts so fascinating.
It really is.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the underlying economic engines of the factions you encounter in the source material. Because usually, the real horror isn't the weapon they were holding.
No, it's not.
It's the reason they bought it in the first place.